Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
Bitoku is a really big, large, heavy Euro game. And when you condense it down, it has beautiful components, beautiful artwork, and just magnificent gameplay. We tend to like very heavy Euros with a lot going on that kind of tickles the brain in different aspects. And this game comes through in spades. What's going on is there's a spirit in the forest, and it's choosing somebody to take over, and up to 4 people are competing to be the next great spirit. And if you win, you get to be the next great spirit. Fantastic. And the 3 people who don't, well, they'll be forgotten in history of time, I suppose. But in this game, it gives you such interesting decisions. Now, what you're doing on turn is very easy. Play a card. Utilize a die if it's ready. You can cross a river, which is taking your die from one spot, moving it to this other spot to gain resources or avenues of path to victory. And the 4th thing is pass, which is really just means I'm out of actions, right? So the pass is 3 things. But you must know that in those 3 actions that you can particularly take, there are a lot of different paths to victory in ways that you want to accomplish your goals in the game, which is scoring the most points at the end of the game. And there's a lot of interconnectivity between these actions and what's going on. A card may give you a resource, or a card may give you a resource and a dragonfly. But do you want another dragonfly, or do you want to play the card that may be a little suboptimal, but gives you exactly what you need? Maybe some movement points. That will kind of go through. So a lot of different paths to victory. You get a path that you can walk down, or use the path on the board to kind of walk through and get your points. Or you do a little bit of both, because you don't want to waste those movement points, and you can't move as far down one track as you want. Or maybe you punt that and you go after the dragonflies and the spirits, putting those together and getting those bonuses. But then you don't want to think that and not build any buildings, because those buildings getting out are very important. And by this point, your mind is kind of warped and moving around of what your best options are. Well, your best options are normally going to be tactical, but you also need some long-term strategy in this game. And there is a lot of it. Now, the game's only 4 rounds, and you're going to get, the actions of 3 cards played and 3 dice utilized, and then crossing the river if you're lucky enough to get one of those spots. So anywhere from probably 6 to 8 actions, 6 to 9 actions in the game, and that's going to be the maximum that you're going to be able to obtain in a round over 4 rounds of the game. So that gives you like a little bit of leeway, but it feels so constricting when you think about those are just a few actions you're going to have. You're going to need so much to happen on the board. But it's brilliant, because as you get more powerful cards, you can accomplish more things. Once you go down through a path, and this path gives you some goodies that you're going to need, you can more easily get those resources. As you grab those crystals that you put on your board, maybe every round the purple ones are going to generate resources for you, so you no longer need those cards that generate resource for you. So it takes that action right out of the game for you and allows you to do bigger and maybe more fun things to do. And there are a lot of options. You are going to play this game, and you're going to get better at it as you go through. You're going to become more efficient. You're going to understand what the game is trying to get you to do, and you're going to be doing that as you build kind of like your engine, if you will, your resource management as you go through. So your first play, you're going to be like, wow, I didn't do that well, blah, blah, blah. But as you go through, you're definitely going to get better at this. It's very, very heavy. There's a lot of kind of pieces that kind of fit together like gears. And as you understand the icons, which is a little bit of a learning curve here, but you have like a little menu where you can look at all the icons, which is brilliant. But as you understand the game, as you know it better, your decisions are going to be more powerful, and they're going to be stronger as you go through. And that's a big, big plus for this game. This is going to be an overwhelming game, so this is not something I'd recommend for the faint of heart. If you don't play a lot of heavy Euros, this is probably not a jumping off point for you. But brilliant art, brilliant components. The game looks and feels fantastic in your hand. I had some minor quibbles, which I'll talk about in the components, but those are very minor quibbles to what's going on in this game. So one of my favorite heavy Euros to come out in a long time, and one I highly recommend. The strategies that you have in it, decision making, and kind of like the branching off of those decisions. So you're going down this path, do you continue down it? Do you want to kind of punt, maybe try to do something different? Are brilliant. This is one I heavily, heavily recommend, and one we liked quite a bit. Here is Bitoku, or however you would say that. Very beautiful cover here. I like the look of it. Once you play, these are the 4 main characters, and then the great spirit going through. So very, very evocative cover here. You can tell this is a mess when you open up. There's no storage whatsoever that you're going to have in here. So you just kind of pile things in here the best you can. I bagged it up. There are no even second inserts on the market you can purchase. It's just a mess. So let me set some of this stuff aside, and I'll show you what's in here. So let's take a look at some of these resources you're going to have. You're going to have some buildings. They're very thick. As you can tell, tiles here that you're going to have with different pictures, and the icons on are fairly easy to see. You're going to get a first player marker, which is just amazing. Not first player marker, but it's going to track the rounds of the game, or et cetera, the turns that you have. You're going to have these different buildings that will all be these different shapes. You're going to have rocks. All of the cardboard in here are really nice. You're going to have these like goodies that you'll have. Some of them are silk screened and some aren't, but only on one side. Seems like a wasted thing here. So here's the sake. But it's only on one side. Super weird. I don't know what the thought would be. You have these little small cards that you'll have. These will be ways for you can score victory points. You can see the icons of what you need, the victory points if you accomplish it, and then if you don't accomplish it. So those are fine. Each player is going to get a bag of stuff here. And what you're going to have here are these little buildings that you can put out. Now, buildings are unique. So the purple ones are going to be different than the yellow ones, different than the green ones. Everybody's going to have 3 dice that are translucent. You're going to have these little things that will be double-sided, eye open on one side and not on the other. That's for game purposes. These little kodamas that you'll have, they'll be scoring markers. They're all come in different colors. Everybody's going to have their own starting deck of cards, which are exactly the same except for the icon on here that you'll see utilized. But the artwork is beautiful. It gives you one of each type of character. And then powers at the bottom that aren't the most powerful. So you'll be upgrading these as go on. So everybody will start out with their own bag of stuff here. Everyone also will get a player board that pretty much is the same. You're going to have a spot to put your cards and all your little goodies that will be on here. It looks pretty busy because there's a lot going on. Each of the other side will be a little bit different based on the solitaire play that you're going to be playing here. But for the most part, the player boards are very thick, very nice. Everything fits in here. They're not recessed, so things can move around. But that really wasn't a problem when we were playing. You are also going to get a huge board. So this thing will fold out. I mean, it's probably eight folds in here. Look how thick this is. But it's very beautiful. You're going to have a track on it. It will look really, really nice. It's not all going to fit in here in this frame, but here's the multiplayer side that you're going to have here. You're going to have recessed in here where things will sit in here for you to be able to play. And then you'll also see that recess down here at the bottom. But let me see if I can show you a little bit of this board. You can just see the beautiful nature of this board. You're going to have recessed in here where things will fit in. Your cards will fit in here nice. Very, very, very beautiful board that you're going to have here. You'll have these little parts that will go on it based on the number of players that you're playing with. They kind of sit right in there. As you can see, it's very easy to do. You're also going to get some player aids, which will look like books. We'll teach you the scoring. All the icons will be here, almost like a menu. Very, very nice in turn order that you're going to have. You're going to have any number of cards, and you're going to have more of these, which I've already showed you, these tiles and stuff. All this stuff just going all over the place. You're going to get a few more of these you can stick on the board for variety and what you're going through, etc., based on the number of players. And that's the components. There is a lot of them. A lot of them are unique, like your little characters that you'll have. The little buildings are unique. Everything was great care, except for the only thing really I can complain about is that some of these are silkscreen and some aren't. Very, very weird choices to go with that. But the components are top-notch. It's a very beautiful looking game. So here is the rule book. Now this is a ginormous rule book. This thing is big. So at the back you have a little bit of solitaire play, as you can see back here. But this is a big book, and it's a difficult game to kind of to learn. So you're going to have the picture of the components at the front, setup, which has a picture here. I wasn't crazy about this. So some of the issues I had is like, plates kodama somewhere. What's a kodama? What's a kodama? I go back here, and things are kind of listed as there's 20 kodama counters. It doesn't tell you exactly which one is which. And it took me a little bit to figure out what was what. It just did. And so you go through, it tells you the different spots. There's a lot of like explanation of what the cards do. There's plenty of pictures and examples, but this is a big game. At the end of the day, you're not doing a whole lot. There's 4 possible actions which are right here. And I'll go through that in the flow of the game. But it's just how everything kind of interacts with each other. That's a little more difficult. And then, so 3 of the 4 phases are just going to be clean up. And then there's a lot of scoring, and it's kind of wonky how the scoring goes. There's just a lot of different ways to possibly score. Breakdown of the board. Once again, things have names like how the Great Spirit. You just got to know where they are by using this here, and you have to download all the information in your head. And then it goes into more detail about stuff. Not an easy game to learn. You're definitely going to need to maybe watch a video, sit down with this a couple times, and read through it slowly. You're going to have to digest the terminology and the vocabulary of this game. But once you do, this is a pretty exciting game. The rulebook becomes clearer the more you play. It's a good reference tool. I think it does a pretty good job for what is a very, very intense game. I'm going to to give you a quick overview of this game. This is a 2-player version of what you have. You'll see it has 2 horns up here. Their side is 3 and 4 players. So that's going to be the easiest way to navigate that. What you're trying to do is score the most amount of points by utilizing this board and by using this individual player board that you'll have in order to play the game. You're going to play 4 seasons each year, and there's 4 years in the game, and you'll track that up here. So each season. Now this season is kind of a cleanup. You draw some cards. These 2 bottom ones are really going to be cleanup, not too difficult. And in this summer area right here is where all of your actions will take point. This is the game right here. The rest of these 3 are just cleanup. Then you'll play 4 rounds and you'll do final scoring. So it's a quick overview of how that works. So the first thing you're going to do each round is you're going to draw 4 cards from the top of your deck. And then you're going to look at your cards, decide to discard one of them into your discard pile, i.e. I'm not going to use it this turn, and this will become my hand. That's the first thing you're going to do each round. The second thing you're going to do is you'll be able to take your 3 possible actions. To start explaining the game, I'm going to explain this board, but I'm going to do so through the actions that you'll take in the game. On your turn, you can do one of 4 things. First one would be the last one, which would be pass. That means you have no other actions to do. The other thing you do is play one of these cards from your hand. And when you play a card, you pick which card you want, and you simply place it down. Take the action that is listed on it right here. In this case, you get 1 movement. This one will give you one of these resources, so you just take the action that's on it. You will also activate the dice by moving it up. If there happens to be a crystal here, then you would activate the crystal. That's all you do. That's one possible action. The second thing you do is utilize one of your dice. Take this die off here, put it on the main board, and utilize it. The third thing you can do is cross the river, which I'll show you in a minute, or you can simply pass. What you have going on here on the board is fairly easy. So when you gain crystals, this will come over and give you another eyeball sleeping, and you'll have something right there. So you can have a choice of either gold or purple. The gold is going to give you an ongoing. So this will be like, anytime I take a crystal, I'm going to get 2 victory points. Well, this is going to give you a goodie at the beginning of each round. And these will be set up here. So let's say you had 2 of these. You would use like this. Every time you had a crystal or gained a crystal, you get 2 victory points. Or at the beginning of each round, you're going to get a wood. That's going to be very easy to do. Down here are buildings. So if you want to build a building out because you have an access to a card or something allows you to do so, you can take one of the buildings off here and you just pay the cost. So the first one would be a wood. The second one would be a stone. The third one will be a stone or a stone and a piece of wood, and etc. And you gain victory points by building the buildings. That's kind of what's going to happen here. As you gain these rocks, you're always going to start the game out with 1, but as you gain these rocks, they will fill in these spots. The maximum you can have is 4, and they're never reset on the board. And as you are able to, based on the card play or some available action, you can put these down here for a cost. Some of these cost resources. Some of the spots like this is free, and you will gain victory points at the end of the game for whatever is on this rock. So that's another way. So if I didn't have anybody down here, I wouldn't score any victory points for these rocks, but the more I have here, I'll be able to score. So that would give me 1 for every time I accomplish that. In this case, it would give me 2 for each time I accomplish that. And what you're trying to do is you want to activate these dice on the board so you can utilize them on the main board. The last thing you can do down here is when you're gaining path cards. And you'll gain cards like this on the path. And you'll set these up here, and as you get more and more, it'll kind of create a path as you're going through. Every time you get movement points, like I did right here, I can choose either on the board to move or move here, and as I move down here, I gain the goodies here. So in this case, I get 2 victory points and a resource of my choice. In this case, I will get 3 victory points. I can either gain a rock to put down here, or pay to move one of these down here. That would be my options as I move through on this path. Also, at the end of the game, you're scoring different colors. So you want different colors here if at all possible. So let's move over to the board and I'll show you how that works with some of your particular actions. So this board is going to be way too big for me to have open and be able to show you everything. So I'm going to show you everything in spots. Once again, when you have movement points, I showed you how you can move on the path, or you can move down through this board. And as you're going down, you have these options to move up here and get goodies. Obviously, the further down you go on the board, the more valuable the goodies are. Here you get 2 victory points and a 1 extra to your dice. Down here, 4 victory points and 1 movement to your eyes. At the end of the game, there'll be gates here, and when I stop at a gate, I always get what's on here too. So I can get a free rock and a resource of my choice. What's also important is that in the future, if I get another movement point, I'll be able to put one of these guys here. When I stop, it becomes sleeping, so he cannot move any longer. But the next time I move, if I get movement points, I can either start here at the gate per normal, or I could start at one of these spots next to the gate I was at previously. These are not gates, but these right here are. So now I could start here, helping me progress all the way further down. Keep in mind that when you cross the bridges, they do require resources to go over the bridges. So this up here is the forest, and this is where you'll be placing your dice as you're progressing through the game. If you remember earlier, I said one thing you do is play a card. I show you how to do that. The second thing you do is you could place a die. When you place a die, you will place it on one of these spots on the forest side of the board. This is the 2-player version, so there's only one box. If I were to place it here, I would look at the number of pip, 3, right here, and I would gain 2 movement. If I had gone here, I would get a dragonfly or the Mitoa card, or any of these. So this would give me a crystal or build a building, and these would give me free resources. That's just something that you can do. It also allows you to move your Kodama down the board. So this is what you would do. Now, the third possible action was cross the river. That means you cross over the river. Now, if you cross over the river, you always take your die down by 1, so this would make it a 2. If for any chance it was on a 6, it would go down to a 3. It's a wonky rule, but it is there. Then I could take any of these actions up here. Now, these spaces on the board will always have these put on bottoms. This will allow you to get more of those paths that I showed you earlier, or I could get one of these cards and add them to my hand, which theoretically have stronger actions than what were available before. They go directly in my hand, not into the discard pile. The last possible action at this spot would allow me to draw an end-of-game scoring card, grab a rock, move a person on a rock like I showed you earlier, or move down on the Kodama track. So you can choose 2 of those, but it can't be the same twice. So those are possible actions you have. Once you cross the river, then this spot would become available again for somebody else to place a dice there. So there are some strategic elements in when to cross the river and when not to block anybody any longer. Now the bottom part through here is going to be options for you to build buildings. And as you build a building, there'll be buildings that will be face up, and you'll be able to take one of these buildings and perhaps build it. So when you build this, remember I told you to take it off your board, then you would place it on here, placing that building marker on top of the building, signify that it's yours. So you get what's in the top left corner immediately. Anytime somebody puts a die, like a 3 die or higher, they can utilize this power. And if it's somebody else's building being used, the person that owns it would get the goodie on the right. And as these buildings fill up here, there are other ways for you to score and do things. These spots here will also have a different way to score. And these are tracks you're moving up. This spot right here says move a Kodama 2 spots, and this spot will allow you to move your little tracker up. And basically this is a tracker to get victory points. Whoever comes in first place on this track will get 4 victory points, and whoever comes in second will get 2. And there'll be 1 on each of those spots as you're going through. Now the bottom of the board is fairly easy. You're going to have dragonflies, motamas, you're going to have the buildings listed over here, and you're going to have crystals over here. And you'll be able to purchase these based on the price underneath them. So here, this one's free. This one costs a resource. And this one will cost you jade, but you gain a victory points. A sake, gain a victory point. Or if you get this one, you can give up 2 sake and either a jade and another sake, and you gain 5 victory points. So different ways to obtain things in order to place them up on the board. So there's a lot of kind of mixture of what's going on. So let's go back to these cards that we had. You look here, this would give you a building or a crystal. So I could buy a building here or a crystal, gain a crystal over here. This one would be free, and these would cost resources up to a cost of 2. And so when you play the card, you're able to gain it. This one gives me a dragonfly or a motama, which would be ones that would be placed here, and you're able to gain those. So that's a quick overview of how to play Bitoku. So remember, at the beginning of the round, you are just going to draw 4 cards and discount down to 3. Once you have your 3 cards, you'll take your actions. You can play a card down, take the action on here. You would activate your dice and make sure that it can be played to the board now. And if there's any crystals here, you would activate them. Or you could take your die off the board and play it somewhere in the forest to take an action. Or the third possible action is you could cross that river in order to take the action at the top, which usually will gain you a card or give you some kind of rock or be able to score points. The last thing you do is pass when you have no other actions to do. So the game itself is pretty simple. In the third phase, what you're going to do here is turn orders. Whoever played higher up in this area right through here will become first player. And at the fourth one, you kind of reset the board, bring out new cards, etc., and you're ready to play another round. You'll play for 4 rounds, and then you'll have a scoring at it. That's how you play Bitoku. Who should buy this game? This is not for the faint of heart. This is for heavy Euro players who like a lot of moving parts. Your options, very simple. Play a card, play a dice, move a die across the river, or pass, and that's it. But within those constraints, you can do a lot of things. There's a lot of different ways to score points. It feels like a point salad, and perhaps in some ways it is. But there is a lot of depth to these decisions. And I've noticed as I played the game more, not only did I understand it a little bit better, because there's a lot of icons flying around, but I am better at the game. This is not a gateway game. It's not to anybody who's not played heavy Euros. This is something that's going to require a certain type of person that likes, and they like their brain being tickled by those decisions that are going on in these heavy Euros. This is it. But one of the best I've played in 2021. Absolute hit. We adore and love this game, and no brainer, it's a keeper.